Welcome to the Everyday Saint podcast. Today we're here with Alyona, who is a rising senior at UW-Madison here in Wisconsin. And I am so excited for this conversation because after the last couple of years of getting to know you, something I've been thinking about you is like if friendship were a gift of the Spirit, I feel like you would have that gift. Like you are just so intentional with people and so joyful. And I'm really excited to hear about your faith journey. So welcome, Alyona.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, well, why don't you start off just by telling us about your faith journey? Like, can you take us kind of to the beginning about how you first came to know who the Lord is?
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up with two parents who are very good examples of what Jesus' love looked like in their lives, and they raised me to, have very good spiritual principles, and I could see that through the way that they parented and through the way that they loved each other. So I was blessed to have very good examples in that. I grew up going to church. Kind of boring, but I don't have some crazy story of coming to Christ, but it doesn't always have to be that way. But so I went to church my whole life. I was sitting front row in Sunday school, and when they would ask a question, I would be like, I know this. And we had really good curriculum in our church that would take kids through the whole Bible throughout a year. And so I completed a lot of different cycles of reading the whole Bible, and learning through the whole Bible, in Sunday school, which was super cool. But I don't think that I made my faith my own until probably summer of 7th or 8th grade. I went through a discipleship camp that was up north Wisconsin, no data. And it was just me and a bunch of girls, no phones, hanging out and spending time in God's presence and in fellowship, which was super cool. And I had a camp counselor who I don't know why, but it just really sunk in when, I was looking at her and I was I feel like I'm never going to earn God's love. She looked at me and she's like, well, you never could, no matter how hard you try, no matter, as humans, we can never be perfect. And no matter how hard you try, you're never going to earn it. And it just clicked. I don't know, the way she said it a lot more eloquently than I did, but just the way she said it, it just really clicked in my head. And I was like, oh no, I'm never going to be able to earn it. And it's God's gracious love and mercy that's given out for me that it's a gift I need to accept. And so it just clicked. I came home, I was I got the Holy Spirit now. I'm going to be nicer to my little brother. That lasted a couple weeks. Still a work in progress. But yeah, I would say that's when I made my faith my own. And then also going to college, I would say is also when it really solidified for me, because my parents were very adamant that we go to church on Sundays, and I was always involved in a youth group or Awana or something like that, where it was I would memorize scripture every week and that kind of thing. So going to college and finding my own church and finding my own church group and things like that is when I feel I made my faith my own for the second time. And being able to navigate the number one party school in the country and being able to find my people and people whose morals lined up with mine and who would encourage me to be more like Christ, I would say has been very rewarding, because there are a lot of people who are living in darkness. And I don't know, that's something that's very, I think about a lot, because it's a very academic school, and a lot of people are super focused on these career goals and these school goals, which are good, but I think a lot of times that becomes people's God, because I always say you have a God-shaped hole in your heart, and people try and shove anything in it to make it feel like there's something that can fill their identity. And so a lot of people at school find their identity in drinking and the friends they have, and their boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, and how popular they are, or that kind of thing, and their academics and the job they're going to get when they graduate. And I guess it kind of breaks my heart. And also when people say things to me of well, I'm so excited about this XYZ job, and I'm going to work so hard, 80 hours a week, and I'm going to get this promotion. I feel bad for people, because I'm this to you is the culmination of success in your life, when it's if you put your faith in Jesus and your identity in Jesus, you're never going to be disappointed. You can get fired, you can get laid off, you can get a B on a test, but God is the only thing that's never going to change. And that's what you should truly put your identity in, because otherwise you're going to be disappointed. That's just how it is. If your identity is in your significant other or your friends, they can be great friends, but they're human and they can mess up. So all of that to say that there have been phases in my faith when I have, for the most part, always believed in Jesus. I think everybody has like periods of doubt. But like it's looked different as I've like grown to become a different person, and as I've grown to be like more like Christ in like an adult capacity and like in adult life and adult friendships and things like that. So
Yeah, which is such an important message because it's rooted like, the first commandment is like, thou shalt have no other gods before me. And it's so easy to look at the things in our life and make them more important than the Lord is. Or to say with our words that Jesus is our priority and like our faith is our priority, but then actually in practice, if we were to really look at our day and look at the way that we live our life, that's not the reality.
yeah.
And especially when you're in like college and high school and figuring life out. I mean, it's just like the craziest time of your life. Because I was even just talking to a coworker recently that he plays sports, and he's like, yeah, I'm not going to have like the traditional, like the normal college experience because I can't like go out and party because I play sports. And I was like, oh, boo-hoo.
And she was like, do you know who you're talking to right now?
I was like, well, I didn't drink at all in college. And he goes, how did that turn out for you? And I was like, I had a fine time. Thank you so much for asking.
That's insane.
I know, but that's just like the assumed disposition.
Yeah.
And especially at a place like UW-Madison, as you said, -- party school in the country.
Yeah.
That's just the culture.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what that's been like navigating because especially now with you being a senior, like you've walked the walk. So what has it been like keeping your eyes set on Christ when everything else tells you not to?
Yeah. I think it's been like a huge blessing to be in a place where like there are people who like need Jesus and like need Christ-like representatives around them. And like, I mean, Madison is a very diverse city. I have so many friends who are so many different religions and so many different ethnicities and from so many different places in the country. And it's like super cool to be like surrounded by all of that. But like at the same time, it like also like breaks my heart. Like there's doom and gloom finals week. Like it is like, and then like when finals week is done, everyone's like, oh my gosh, like let's go get trash. And I'm like, I'm going to have my bubbler. Thank you. But I would say like, I was always a goody two shoes. So like maybe that's like part of it. But I just like knew going into college, I was like, I'm not going to drink. Like for one, I know that like I'm called biblically to submit to the law and authority where I am. And like, yeah, other countries have an 18 drinking age, but like I'm going to wait until I'm 21 if I'm going to drink at all. So I was like, I'm just going to, make that very clear. And at first, like the freshmen you meet in your class is like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go to this frat tonight. And I'm like, you have fun. I'm going to watch a rom-com, or I'm going to do yoga, And so like, I think I set the precedent very early with people that like, I don't drink. And I think it got to a certain point where people like stopped asking because they knew like I wasn't going to budge on that kind of thing. And I'm very lucky that I have, friends who are believers who are also walking in the same path, and we can talk about difficulties with that. And like, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't like tempted to just like go out and try it. Like, people seem like they have a fun time until they're throwing up for the next couple of days. But, so like I have definitely like wanted to like try it, but then I always keep coming back to like, like I'm commanded to follow the law and submit to the law. And, like there are plenty of secular reasons why you shouldn't drink. Like I'm paying how many tens of thousands of dollars to go to college? Like I would rather be coherent and like not miss class because I'm hungover or whatever. And I also think like there's such a problem with like alcoholism because, like when this sin around you is so normalized, like everyone gets drunk Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's just normal. And so I think that there is like a lot of like alcoholism that's like hiding underneath this. And it's like when you get out of college and it's not appropriate to be at a party school and to be on party campus and whatever, like then what happens? Like you have this habit built up and this like addiction to alcohol that's like not healthy. You're going to graduate college and you're going to work and you're going to miss work and all these things because like you are in this habit of like living this party life and you can't really get away with it anymore. So I guess, yeah, it's like I have a lot of like empathy for people who like do partake in that kind of thing because I know how hard it is like to say no to that. But like when I'm with my friends, believers or not, I'm always like, let's like stay in and watch a movie. Sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. Like, it's okay. But yeah, it's difficult. But I think like holding firm on your boundaries and like not just saying like, oh, I'm not gonna drink, but like knowing your why behind it of like, I want to show up well for my friends. It's kind of unsafe, like going and drinking, getting drunk at a frat, probably not the ideal place. Like there are countless stories of people who are like assaulted or who like get roofied and stuff like that at a frat. And I'm like, I just don't even want to deal with that. So there's just like a lot of secular reasons why you shouldn't do it, but also like know your like spiritual reason why you're doing it and know like you are commanded to like live by the Spirit, like the Holy Spirit, not like the spirit of your flesh. And I feel like for a lot of people, when they're under the influence or get to a certain point when they've had too much to drink, it's like you're like commanded by the spirit of your flesh as opposed to like the Holy Spirit. And like that's not good. Like I feel like you'd sometimes make decisions that like aren't like they're not good. And like if someone sees you, especially like speaking to people who are believers, if someone sees you and you're really under the influence of drugs or alcohol, whatever it is, and they look at you, like, are they going to think like, oh, like this is a person who's representing Christ well, or are they going to be like, oh, you're a Christian, okay, like, so I think that's something that like I've also been thinking a lot about is like, how can I represent Christ in the way that I act, the way that I talk, the way that I am, even just like in public, because that's like such a big deal. Is like you should be open about your faith, and then if you're saying, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, and then you're like turning around and doing things that are not good, then people are gonna be like, oh, okay. So
right, yeah. I was actually just thinking about this today, that how much prayer and virtue have to go hand in hand. That like everything stems from that personal relationship and encounter with God, and then because you have this very personal encounter with love itself, that love then flows into what you do. And so these virtues actually start to make so much more sense, and you start to build up more virtues. And maybe at first it's going to be difficult to say no to sins, but then as you like continue on the path of loving God more, those things become easier for you to like handle and know what to do when you're put in positions where maybe it's a little bit more difficult to like stay on the straight and narrow, because you know that that's not going to fulfill you in the same way that a relationship with God fulfills you. And to like be able to then see people more clearly for who they are and love them well, because you do like that which is love. Yeah. And so everything else pales in comparison.
Yeah. And it's like really funny because there are certain people that I know that are like huge overshares when they're drunk. And so sometimes I use that as like an opportunity to like have a gospel conversation, because like I have a lot of friends who have experienced like a lot of church hurt, who have like a really complicated relationship with like the idea of a God. And when they are in a mood to share and be emotional, I'm like, let's do it. Like, let's have this conversation, because like all of my friends know that like this is something that's really important to me. Like I try not to miss like going to youth group on Thursdays, because like being in fellowship in college is so important to me. And I try not to miss on Wednesdays, like when I have small group, when I do a Bible study with some of the other girls on campus. And so like I'll leave and I'll be like, hey, I'm going here. See ya. And like they know that that's what I do that night of the week. And I'm very lucky for the friends that I have that aren't believers yet, that like they are very understanding of my choices in my life and why I do it. And so they don't like push back on that at all. And I even have friends who will like find Bible verses and like write them in my birthday cards, or when we're having a conversation of like, oh, this is something I'm struggling with, they'll like do research and find Bible verses and, like do their research on that kind of thing, so that they can give me advice that they know that like I would resonate with, which is super sweet. Obviously the ultimate goal is that like, they would also like believe that themselves and come to know Christ. But I just feel very lucky that my friends are not the type, or even people that I associate with at all are not the type to be like, oh, like, let's go drink, let's go do this. So yeah, I don't know. Sounds kind of funny that when my roommates are drunk, I'm like, oh, let's have a conversation about this, or, because I feel like there are things that just like need, like sometimes you can just tell when someone needs to talk about something. Like if there's something going on in their family or something like that, it's like you can tell someone just needs to just like get it off their chest, And I'm just like, I'll sit and listen. Like, this is like kind of funny, or like doing some dance moves and stuff like that in between this conversation. And like, I'm having a good time, but when you throw up, like, that's when I'm going to go to bed, because I'm not a huge fan of throwing up. But yeah, just being able to like have conversations with people when they're like vulnerable. I don't know. When they're like willing to like really have that conversation with you is like something that I think is kind of funny. So not advice to go get your secular friends or friends who aren't Christ followers yet, drunk and then ask them questions, but just a funny byproduct of what happens.
If you can capitalize on it, I guess.
Just a funny byproduct of what happens. And so, I don't know, I've had some like really deep conversations, and I feel like I've really gotten to understand a lot of my friends a lot better, because there's like, everybody has really complicated things in their past. That's just how it is. And I know people who have had parents who were, claimed to be very religious, but then, in the background, it was like there was abuse going on or cheating going on and things like that. And so it's like, I understand like why you feel scorned by God and scorned by religion, but like Jesus himself was, crucified by people who claimed they were religious, And so like, I guess it's like, I have a lot of empathy for people, because I can't say that if I was in their situation, I don't know how it would turn out for me. I don't know if I was in that situation and I grew up with parents or family or siblings like that like I wouldn't think any differently than they do now. And so, just being compassionate for people's lives and people's situations, because I can tell you, you need to give your life to Christ. But like that can be such a loaded statement for people. While like objectively, yes, it's true, everybody doesn't need to give their life to Christ. It's like it can be such a loaded thing for people. And like I'd be naive if I didn't realize that like Christians have a little bit of a reputation. And so when you're talking about religion with people, like it's important to tread lightly, because you don't know like what happened in their life that could have really impacted them and turned them away from God. And I don't know, I think like understanding other people's perspectives is like the first step to like really knowing like how you can approach somebody, because it's going to be different. Some people are like, I just feel like I need something in my life. And other people are like, I'm perfectly content, so you would like approach those two situations differently. And I've had friends who are both ways,
Y'all know that I love a good book. In fact, I had a whole series dedicated to not boring Catholic books from a theology major who had to read a lot of boring Catholic books. But I have quite the summer read for you. Jacqueline Brown is an author who focuses on faith-filled, value-driven fiction. So we all know when you pick up that fiction book and you spend the whole time questioning if something's going to pop up that you really don't want to read. With Jacqueline Brown's books, you never have to worry about compromising your values and virtue. These books are clean, exciting, rooted in hope, perfect for the person who really wants to delve into meaningful characters and life's deeper questions through the lens of fiction. You can choose from 3 different series of this book, including the Light series, which goes into a post-apocalyptic world, answering the deeper question of who do you become when all else falls away. You can delve into the Awakening trilogy, which focuses on the difference of light and darkness and who do you become when you're rooted in prayer and courage. Or the Altered series, which explores the consequences of your choices through a mystery, thought-provoking series. So if you're looking for that perfect summer read, look no further than the link in the description below to read Jacqueline Brown's series now. Well, and even that, like, what you're saying of, like, everyone needs to give their life to Christ. Like, you hear that, and it's even, like, us living our life, like, that's something that we have to be reminded of. Like, what does that even mean for us to, like, be currently right at this moment be giving our life to Christ? Like, that's going to look different at different points in our life, and it's a huge question to unload. Like, am I really doing that in my life? Like, am I giving God everything? Am I giving him all the glory? Am I avoiding sin? And always like talking highly of others? There's that's a question that like, yeah, we can present. Like, I think we can present it to someone who knows nothing, but like at the same time, we're still answering that question too.
Yeah.
So it is a huge statement to put on somebody. So then to like really work through what that looks like and the healing processes for someone to understand like who Jesus is and who we're talking about when we tell them that like this is who you need in your life.
Yeah.
Like that in itself is a very personal approach. And we know that that's like Jesus had a very personal approach.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure we're putting ourselves in positions to listen and not just to like hear what someone is going through and be thinking about the next response so quickly that we don't even like hear truly what they're saying. I even had there's a priest in his homily this past week, and I thought this was really interesting to think about, but he encouraged us that when we're listening to someone, we should wait 3 seconds before responding. And I was like, oh shoot, like if you really think about that, like how quick are we to just respond to someone because we want to say the right thing, we want to do the right thing, we want them to think that they, like, we knew what was going to be said, we knew what the next right thing to say was, so we quick say it and don't actually give that 3 seconds to listen and think about what they're actually saying.
Right.
We just wanted to like jump in. And I just thought that was really wise advice, like, and especially in what you're talking about, like you're talking about what it means really to like listen to someone and to be there for them and not just to push something down their throat because you know the answer, but to help get to the answer with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's really funny. So like for work, I'm a project manager, and my project manager mentor, she gave me advice. She's like, you know, if you're working with people who are introverted, you need to give them a lot of time to think through what you said and then to think through what they want to say. So she's always like, you need to sing the ABCs in your head before you jump in. Because I hate awkward silence. So if I'm like, hey guys, any updates on the project? And no one talks, I'm going to be like, yeah, no, okay, we're done, good. But then I got to be like, okay, A, B, C, D, E. So that's something I feel like I need to bring into my own life of like, yes, I don't like awkward silence, but like to let there be time to like really like soak in what people are saying and to like understand people, because we are all human and we all have sins in our lives and we all are in desperate need of a savior. And so just like giving grace, and I think a lot of times, like I mentioned, like sometimes people just want to talk to somebody. Sometimes people just want to like get it off their chest, and like, you know, if there's something going on with a family member or something like that, I think something I've tried to do in all of my friendships is like position myself as somebody that like I will listen to what you're saying and I will like do my best to understand how you feel and say like, I understand why you feel that way. Like, what can I do to support you? Like, do you want me to just listen and not say anything? You know, do you want me to come to this person's house with a sledgehammer? Like, I don't know what you want me to do. I'm just kidding. But like, and just like understand like what someone needs from you. Cause I think it's like, of course, my inner monologue when someone is like, yeah, I'm really struggling. My life feels really empty right now. I'm like, I have to like restrain myself. I'm like, well, you know, objectively it is. Like when you think about like in the grand scheme of things of like, you know, spirituality and in a Christian sense, like there's so much that like you're missing, and you have this God-shaped hole and you're trying to fit other things in it, but you wonder why it still feels like there's something missing, you know? So like I have to sometimes like calm the urge to just like jump in and say something that like, yes, objectively is true, but like if someone doesn't have like the biblical foundation or the spiritual foundation to like really comprehend what you're saying, it's going to seem kind of strange that you're just like, well, you just need Jesus. Like they're gonna be like, okay, thanks. You know, and I've just always found it helpful to like share like my own experiences and like to say like, you know, this is like how God delivered me from XYZ. Because I think like people look at me now and they're like, oh yeah, like she's extroverted, she's this, she's that, whatever. And like when I tell people like, oh, like there was like a solid like 2 or 3 year period in my life where like I couldn't leave my house because I was so anxious that something would happen or that I would see something I didn't like or whatever. Like when I left my house, that like I would like get grounded. Like my parents, had no clue what the heck was going on. So they would be like, well, like, you know, you need to like come with us or you're grounded. And I'd be like, oh, perfect. I'd love to be grounded because I don't want to go anywhere anyway. And so I would just be like, yeah, okay, well, you know, whatever. And so like, I think a lot of people like look at the way that I am now and just assume like that's always how I've been. But like, that's not the case. Like God delivered me from like a lot of struggles. And like, I'm very grateful that like now I can like sit here and have this conversation and not be like freaking out. And it's just like I feel like that's what like really speaks to people, is to say like, you know me as college Alyona and fun and whatever. But like, there was a time when I wasn't that way. There was a time when like, oh my gosh, like I had no friends because I never left the house, you know? And so like to give that kind of juxtaposition and to say like, here's how God, like with, you know, like the help of some intensive therapy was able to like help me through this. And now I can like sit here and I can do whatever. And I don't really feel anxious about it, which is something like I never, ever thought I'd ever be able to do. Mm-hmm. But like, I don't know, like that's the beauty of it. And, you know, I know that I'm very blessed that like God delivered me, because I know that's not everybody's story, but like I know why that happened. Like I know that that was so that I could use that scenario to give God glory, and to like in the conversations that I have with other people, believers or not, to bring this up and say like, like God delivered me. Like it surely wasn't my own volition. It surely wasn't me just being like, oh yeah, no, I'm just not going to be anxious anymore, or like, oh yeah, maybe I'll just start going places, when you're in like that headspace of like just like you just need to be comfortable because everything else is so like unbelievably terrifying for you. It's like, I don't know, like that. I don't understand how anybody could get themselves out of that just simply by wanting to not be that way anymore. Like that's just unfortunately not how it works. So I think that's like what speaks to people the most. And it's actually something that I found like a lot of people are really interested in, because I had my phase a lot younger than a lot of people did. And I think a lot of people, as they're in their freshman year of college, are really starting to experience mental health struggles for the first time. And so I can say, been there, done that. Let me tell you, this is what helped me, and this is like how I, dealt with it, and this is how I still was able to keep up with things. Well, keep up with, what was it, like fourth grade that I was in? Yeah, okay. A little different. And it's like something, I was super blessed this past school year. I had like a small group of like 20-something girls. Like it started as like all 20 of us like huddled up shoulder to shoulder in like a super small room, and we had to like get bigger and bigger rooms as the year went on because we had like more and more people showing up, which was super cool. But I found that like a lot of people like asked me questions. Like when I would talk about that part of my testimony, a lot of people were really interested to know. And I can only imagine it's like, someone going through that, or you yourself are someone that's going through that, and it's like maybe something that you haven't heard many people talk about, because it's kind of hard to understand if you haven't experienced it. Like, I love my parents very much, but like, like my mom always kind of understood what I was going through because my mom had dealt with anxiety as well. But my dad was like, well, like, what's making you nervous? And I would explain to him, and he'd be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. There's no need to be nervous. I'm like, well, gee, thanks. That helps.
Right.
Right. And so it's hard because I think a lot of people, if you haven't experienced it, which, if you haven't, be so grateful because, like, that's amazing. But if you haven't experienced it, it's, like, really hard to like really truly empathize with what someone is going through. And so I think people were like, it's like relieving to know that like there is deliverance from that kind of thing. And like to see someone who made it out of the other side and is now like thriving and able to live in a big city, which Madison's not that big, but to me it's big.
It's pretty big. It's pretty big. Most people know Madison. Like if I'm like, oh, I'm from Wisconsin, most times people are like, oh, I like visited, and a lot of times it's relative to where Madison is.
That's because there's huge parties. There's Mifflin. That's why like everyone in like a 500-mile radius Mifflin weekend is like always there. But yeah, so it was a bigger city to me because I'm from small town. I've been here my whole life. That's just always how it's been. And so like being able to go to college in a big city and not be like so scared of leaving my apartment and like, what if I get snatched? Which like there's a healthy fear of getting snatched, but it's not like a crazy anxiety like it was before. So like, I don't know. I'm a firm believer that God delivered me from that so that like I would be able to do ministry and like use that situation to like bring him glory when talking about it to other people. So
yeah, absolutely, which is so beautiful. And I think it's true that vulnerability leads to unity. Mm-hmm. And vulnerability with God leads to unity with him. Vulnerability with others leads to unity, because so often we can actually really relate to one another's struggles. Mm-hmm. And even I think the fact that we can relate in some way and that the solution is the same, it just looks different for each person, really speaks to how Jesus like intentionally touches each and every one of our lives. But I'd love to know if you'd be willing to share a little bit more of like, what does it mean that Jesus delivered you from those mental health struggles? And what did that look like for you?
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, I'm trying to like put this all on a timeline because I don't even honestly really like remember a lot of this. Like one, it was a long time ago. And two, I think my brain has like blocked some of it out. But I think I had started having my first panic attacks when I was 4 years old. So like when I would go on the bus, I would like just freak out if I didn't have a specific person sitting next to me every single day. And so like my parents saw this and they're like, oh, she's just throwing a fit. But now with the context of the rest of my life, my parents look back on that and they were like, oh, like this was the onset of like her anxious experiences and things like that. And I would say it didn't start getting like really serious until like second grade. So like I want to say like between second and sixth grade or seventh grade, I can feel people thinking it. But like I would say is when I like probably stopped going to therapy for that. But I went to like a Christian therapy office, and I really do believe that that is like the right way to do it, because I've had a couple of therapists who aren't believers, and even if they do try to understand like your point of view, like the advice that I want to receive is like biblical advice. Like above all, I want to make sure that like the way that I'm going about improving myself is biblical, you know? And so like I went to this Christian therapy office, which I think was really beneficial. And of course my parents are like, I mean, we don't know what's wrong. Like it was something I didn't really want to talk about, but they just saw from my behavior that there was like something really, really wrong. And I would just like say things to them that they were like, why is my 8-year-old daughter saying this? Like I would just like say absolutely outrageous things to them about like, you know, like, oh, I don't want to live anymore and whatever. And like my parents were like really worried for me. So they took me to this therapist's office, and super nice, sweet lady. The first couple times I was like, I'm going to show them. I'm not going to talk. So we would sit there in silence, and my parents week after week would make me go back, which in retrospect, so grateful that they had me do that. And slowly as time went on, we would talk about things, and unfortunately, part of working through something is like getting uncomfortable. And so my therapist would give me homework of like, you need to go one place this week. And I was like, oh. But you know, like, I would do this homework, and eventually when I started to realize like, oh, this is like really, you know, beneficial for me, these like coping skills and things like that. Like I started to like lean into it a little more. But I think like, honestly, probably what was most impactful was like my mother's role in this. 'Cause like she knew what it was like to like experience this anxiety. And I think like she experienced it a little later in life and for much longer than I did. And so like she knew what I was going through, and like bless her soul, because there would be nights after nights after nights after nights where I couldn't sleep and I would be like freaking out. So she would sit me down, and she would like, in a notebook, we would like map my thoughts. And we would say, you know, like, you know, she would always say like, what's the worst thing that could happen? The worst thing that could happen always ended up with me dying. But, you know, and then she's like, well, then you go to heaven and you see the Lord. So is it really that bad? And I was like, no, it's not, Natasha. You're right. So like, I would say that like, honestly, like the biggest factor was like seeing Jesus through my mom, and like how she was so like willing, like, oh my gosh, I would be so like tired and like also like somewhat like annoyed probably if I were her. But she never seemed annoyed, never seemed like upset that I needed her or anything like that. And so like seeing Jesus's love so clearly through her that like I could yell at her and I could say I hated her and whatever, and she would always be there for me when I needed it, was like so powerful. And I think too, that's like a representation of Jesus's love. Like we can turn away from him, we can say hateful things about him, his people, whatever, but like he always welcomes us back with open arms. And so like seeing Jesus through him and through my therapist, I think is really important. And like, you know, like prayer and journaling and things like that also helped me, and spending time in the Word. Like the passages I have gone back to the most time in my Bible have been about prayer and anxiety and things like that. You know, like tomorrow has enough worries of its own, you know? And so like spending time in the Word and like getting in the habit of like every day praying, reading the Word, journaling about it. And eventually over time, like I was able to get out of that, and now I'm a shopaholic and I love leaving my house and going to the store. So it's a double-edged sword, but yeah, I think like God worked in direct ways, like through me spending time in his Word, but also worked in indirect ways, like through my therapist, through the people around me. And I think it also like taught me that like God is the only person I can rely on, because like again, at the age of 9, would like try and have conversations with and I like remember this vividly. I would try and have conversations with my friends about what I was experiencing, and they would be like, what? What do you mean? Like this is something they just didn't really have the capacity to understand yet. But I feel like I like grew up really quick, because I like experienced these emotions very young, and then like worked through these emotions very young. Whereas like I would tell people, and even at like that, people who were of similar age as me, like wouldn't really like understand what I was saying. And I was like, well, it's just me and you, God. Like, you're the only one who's going to know, because all my friends that are my age have, like, they just look at me and they're like, oh, okay. Like, you know, So really taught me to like rely on God, and that like, he's the one who will always be there for me.
Yeah. And I really do find your story so beautiful. Just in knowing you now, it's like you are just so compassionate and like extroverted, and you like coordinated a whole Bible study that we did last summer, and now you're leading a girls' small group and doing all these things. And I remember as like you've told me more bits and pieces of your story, I've just been like, what? Like I never would have guessed any of that, because you're just so grateful for who God is. And it doesn't seem like you're bitter at all for those things that have happened. And sometimes that's like a really difficult part of people's journeys, kind of as we were saying earlier with some of the people you've walked with. It's like it's easy to be bitter with God when bad things have happened, but you've come out of it pointing back to God, like that yes, these things happen, but it was all for my faith to grow so much, and to realize that like in this journey of life, I'm never alone. Like, and isn't that so beautiful as a Christian? Like, we know we will never be alone.
Yeah. Yeah. It is like, oh, I'm going to cry. I'm like tearing up already. But, yeah, it's amazing. And like, again, even like, I don't even like really remember a lot of this, but it's just like, I remember vividly my mom saying like, you are going to do amazing things for the kingdom of God. And like, Satan is giving you hard battles because he knows that when you get through this, that you are going to be able to like shine a light for God, and you are going to be able to do so much good work for his kingdom. And I just remember her saying like so many times would say like, when you get through this, this is going to bring you so many people who like are in need of answers, who are like desperately searching for solutions to these things that they're experiencing. And like, you're going to be able to say like, I got through this. And you're going to be able to say like that, you know, I've made it, I've done it, and, you know, God helped me, and I was reliant on him in this situation, and I think that's very true. Like, that's kind of just the outlook I've always had of, like, I'm going to be able to help so many people, and I'm going to be able to, like, bring glory to God through this situation. And, like, you know, there are days when I would say bringing glory to God is not my ultimate focus, but there are days where it is, and it's, like I would... Like, I love my friends and the people around me so much that, like, if it took more trials for me, for, like, someone else to truly see, like, how good God is and how, like, he should really play a role in their lives and should be the leader in their lives, like, that would be worth it to me. I mean, I say that now, but when I'm living it, it's a little different, but the sentiment is there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'd love to know if you could go back to your past self. What would you want to tell her?
Oh my gosh.
A little Alyona.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Probably that, like, I thought there was, like, so much of my life that I, like, wouldn't experience. Like, I didn't even really start, like, I mean, people who know me know I'm very forward thinking. Like, I always have a 5-year plan, which is not a good thing.
Same.
But maybe not the best thing. But, you know, with the plans that I've had, I will say when they have gone wrong, it has always turned out for the better in the end. But people who know me now know that, like, I'm a big planner. But, like, when I was experiencing all this stuff in late elementary school, middle school, high school, and things like that, I was like, oh, I'm not even going to make it to college, you know? Like, that's not going to be something I'm going to experience. I'm not going to be alive, you know? And so, like very heavy things to think about with that. But, like, I think I would say, like, all these things that, like, you think you won't be able to experience, like, by the strength of God, like, you will make it to college, and you will flourish, and you will have a life that's fulfilling, and you will have Christ-like friendships, and it's going to be great. But, like, you just need to, like, keep taking it day by day, and, like, keep going forward, and keep, like, growing into yourself, like, through Christ. And, like, there will be a time when all these things right now that you think are impossible, going places, sleeping through the night, oh my gosh, also had a stint of anxiety where I was really afraid to use the bathroom, okay? You'll be able to use the bathroom and you will be fine. So all these things where it's like, I never thought that I would make it this far, and I never thought I'd be able to, like, truly experience life and enjoy it. Like, you will. And also, if it's coming from future me, and I see myself in the future, and my future me is telling me that, I'm really going to believe that, because I'm like, wow, that's the future me. Like, I can see that, so.
Right, she made it.
Right, exactly. And so, yeah, I think that's what I would say.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for anyone who's facing anxieties? Like any scripture you turn back to, any practices, especially when it's a faith component, to help people with anxiety?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, like, for one, if you have people around you that, like, you trust and are also, like, walking in faith, I would say, like, confide in them. My ultimate hope for everyone who is following Christ is that they have people around them who, like, truly want what's best for them and, like, truly want what Christ wants for their life, and, like, will give you advice that, like, truly is rooted in Scripture. And so I would say, like, confiding in people is important. I know, like, I felt so, like, isolated and so hopeless, but the reality is like, there is so much freedom when you, like, confess sin, whether that's anxiety or whatever. This is something, like, I think I'm just an oversharer. So, like, in small group this past year, I think, like, part of the reason why we were able to, like, grow so close is because I would just go first. I would be like, yeah, you know what, I'll just say it, And so I would, like, start off these hard conversations, and, like, it's, like, daunting. Like, we would have conversations sometimes about, like, purity in relationships and things like that, and I would just start it off because I'm like, you know what, yeah, YOLO, let's do it. If I start saying something, like, this might open it up for other people to start talking about it. And eventually it did, and, led to, like, accountability groups and things like that, like, formed in our small group, which was beautiful. But, like, fellowship is so important, and I understand that, like, not everyone, unfortunately, is in a situation where they have Christ-centered friendships, but, ultimately, don't go to those friendships first, go to God first. And this is something my mom and I both struggle with because, again, for people who have never dealt with a mental health crisis, like, you don't really understand the headspace that you're in, but it's just like, you're just in a bubble. And the only thing that you can feel is this, like, fear. And so, like, telling someone, oh, just, like, pray about it and you'll feel better is not really helpful because a lot of the times that's not really the case. And sometimes it does take, like, medical intervention. And, we're very lucky that we live in a time where God can work through therapists and God can work through medication to heal you and things like that. But, like, my mom and I always have a really hard time with, like, the narrative in church of, like, just pray about it and it'll go away. A lot of times it's a lot more complicated than that. And I do agree that, like, God should be your first line of defense, but also, like, God can work through a lot of things in your life. And as long as, like, you truly want in your life, which is so hard because when you're, like, dealing with something, it's like, I just want it to be done. I just want it to be over. But it's like, I guess, like, my story of, like, this being something that you will be able to weave into your testimony and you will be able to, like, tell other people about can be encouraging sometimes, and other times can be like, okay, well, can't someone else do it, not me? Like, I don't want to be dealing with this. Can't somebody else figure it out? So I would say, yeah, it really helped me to, like, spend daily time. I would pray before getting into the Word and say, like, like, God, like, please let me remember this, let this, like, penetrate my life and that kind of thing. And, praying before I get into the Word, and then spending time in like, full chapters, not just, like, cherry picking different verses that I think would be helpful. And then, like, journaling afterwards and saying, like, here's what I'm going to do today. And, like, this passage, I'm going to use this with XYZ. So yeah, I feel like there's, I would in my Bible, like, would just go to the, like, appendix or whatever it is. And I would just, like, look up anxiety and I would just look up fear. And then I would, like, read the whole chapter. Because there's so much talking about, like, we're not called to live by a spirit of fear, like, we have the Holy Spirit. And, like, I still don't know if I think I maybe just, like, wrestle with this phrase because I, like, I don't know. But, like, I've heard a lot of people say that, like, living in a spirit of anxiety is, like, not trusting God, which objectively I do agree with. But, like, it's also kind of difficult having been in that headspace of, like, you're just not thinking logically. Like, there is just, like, this, like, your body's, like, essentially, like, flipped into survival mode. And it, like, all it can think about is just, like the thing that you're, afraid of. And so, like, I do agree that fear and anxiety is the opposite of trusting God, but, like, it's a lot more nuanced than that.
There's some caveats, especially when it's, like, actually, like, a mental health struggle versus like, oh, I'm nervous about if I'm going to get this job or if
Yeah.
I'm going to get a good grade on this
Yeah.
test. Like, there's definitely a difference between like practical things that we can like physically give to God and things that like biologically are just kind of like ruminating in our hearts and minds. There's definitely freedom in turning it to prayer and turning back to God. But you're right, like it is a process. And even, looking at the stories of the disciples, like they faced, like they turned away from God so many times, right? And they spent 3 years learning with him and following him and seeing every single thing that he did. And even then, like Thomas doubted him. And even then, Peter denied him.
Yeah.
And so to know that, like, yet they continued to follow God. So even in those times that we feel like we're falling short, even in those times that we feel like we're struggling, to know that there's always a turning back to God that can lead to redemption, that can lead to freedom, if we allow ourselves to keep coming back and to persevere, and to know there's a strength greater than our own strength that will help get us through the things that we're facing.
Yeah, which is amazing because as somebody who is a control freak and likes to have things her perfect way, it's very nice to know that, like, if, things don't work out how I want them to, that, like, ultimately my life will be used for God's glory. So it's like, if not for my perfect plan, I guess, for God's glory. But just kidding. But yeah, it's like, it's refreshing to know that, like, I can have this, like what I want, whether that's motivated by something good or not, but that, like, ultimately, like, no human interaction, no mistake or sin of my own would be able to, like, thwart God's plan for, like, my life and thwart God's plan for his glory and, bringing people back to him. And I think it's hard, like to, like, wrap your head around that, like, God's grace, because we live in a world where it's like, oh, you hurt my feelings too many times, we're not friends. Or, oh, you do this too many times and, now you and your parents don't talk. We live in a world that is very not forgiving. And that's understandable because, we're human and we are easily scorned. But we have a God that surpasses our understandings. And, like, I just think about it sometimes and I'm like, this is, like, it's so hard to wrap my head around. And good, it should be, because I don't want a God that fits into my understanding and my expectations. Like, there's something scary but also comforting knowing that, like, God is more than I could ever understand. And that's a good thing, because, like, if I were in charge of my life, like, it would be a dumpster fire. So even if I got everything I wanted in my perfect life, like, I don't really think that it would be so perfect, because there are so many people who are like, oh, I had this perfect job, this perfect marriage, this perfect whatever. And it's like, you get in it and then it's like, oh, like, this isn't really what I wanted. Like, this isn't what I expected and that kind of thing. So just having trust in God while also simultaneously being someone who likes to just figure it out myself is a very interesting thing to navigate. But like, just knowing that, like, there's nothing that I could mess up bad enough where God wouldn't love me and wouldn't be elated to have me running back to him is like, okay, like, that's just so cool. I love it.
It's so sweet. And you're right, it is very comforting to know that there's not enough days that we would ever know everything about God. And, like, that's actually, like, man, now I could spend my whole life being curious about him and getting to know him. And, like, every single day will be new. That's, like, exciting. It makes life exciting when we realize that perspective. And we realize, like, we can always trust in God. But we are just at about time, Alyona. So I'd love to know.
Wow, I talked so much. This felt like 5 minutes.
No, it's been so good. As we wrap up, do you have any last tidbits of advice for those who are listening?
I think just from being in school and seeing so many people who need Jesus so bad, like, don't be afraid to, like, be bold in your faith. Like, don't be afraid to say, oh, I'm going to church tonight, or, oh, I'm going here tonight, or, like, this is a big part of my life. I think going to college, I, like, relearned that, because in high school, everyone knew I was a Jesus girl. It's just how it was. But, coming to college, you create your own identity, your own new identity of yourself in college, and there's 40,000 people you've never met before and that kind of thing. So being bold in your faith, because, it's not the healthy that need the doctor. It's the sick. And kind of cliche, but there's the phrase of like, you might be the only Bible that somebody reads. And so like doing your best to represent Christ boldly, because as daunting and scary as it seems, like we're not called to live for the world. Like we are called to live for God. And one day when we go to heaven and we look back on our very short stint that we called our lives on earth, like it's just going to be so different. And so like, I think as I'm going into like leading a group of girls this upcoming year in a small group, I'm just like, be understanding of other people and just to like show Christ's love to them. Because you might be the only Christian that somebody encounters, and everybody needs Christ, and everybody needs Christ bad. Some people just don't know it yet. So be bold, share your faith, share your testimony, get conversations going. Great book I read this past summer was Gospel 101. Talks about like sharing the gospel with other people and like the different components of sharing the gospel. And like it had like a survey at the end of every week where you would like ask a friend a question of like, what do you believe gets you into heaven? Like, what do you believe, all these things. You'd ask all these questions to like get these spiritual conversations going. And so I would definitely recommend that book to anybody. But you can, you could say, oh, well, like it's just my homework I have to do for this class. But then it really gets the ball rolling with these conversations. And so being bold and being inquisitive about people's relationship with religion in their lives, whatever that may be, so that you can understand them better, love them better, and like represent Christ better to them.
Yeah.
So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Long-winded.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
It's been wonderful.